On October 7, 2023 at 6:30 a.m., the armed wing of Hamas, known as the Al-Assad Brigade, began launching rockets from the Gaza Strip into Israeli territory. Within half an hour, approximately 2,200 rockets had landed, causing sirens to blare and people to panic in Israel. At 7 a.m., the Al-Assad Brigades issued a statement announcing that they had fired over 5,000 rockets, declaring the start of their operation named Aqsa Tempest. As explosions rocked cities such as Genera, Tel Aviv, and Ashkelon surrounding the Gaza Strip, small-scale explosions also occurred in Beersheba, Jerusalem, Rehovot, and Rishon LeZion. Hamas senior military commander Mohammed Deif has called on Muslims residing in Israeli territories to initiate attacks against Jews and has encouraged them to acquire weapons. Around 8 a.m., Palestinian militants also initiated an attack from the sea, using gunfire to sink 4 Israeli fishing boats off the coast of the Gaza Strip. Almost simultaneously, Hamas militants breached the border by using bulldozers to dismantle the fences along the Gaza Strip. Around 1,000 Hamas militants entered Israeli territory using trucks, vans, cars, and motorcycles from 7 different points. A clash erupted between militants and Israeli police stationed at the border, resulting in the militants swiftly killing the police officers. Heavily armed and masked militants first targeted the city of Sderot, indiscriminately opening fire on Israelis whom they encountered. The initial gunfire claimed the lives of tens of Israeli civilians, while hundreds were taken captive and transported to Gaza. The militants stormed the police station in Sderot, killing 30 officers and taking control of the station. Meanwhile, Hamas militants continued to infiltrate Israeli territory from the Gaza Strip by land and air, carrying out rocket attacks. The militants targeted the Re'im military base. As 3 Israeli tanks from the Re'im base began moving towards the Gaza Strip, they came under rocket attack from Hamas militants. Despite their advanced capabilities, all 3 tanks lost mobility, leaving the soldiers inside vulnerable. Hamas militants climbed onto the tanks, capturing and lynching 9 Israeli soldiers. They then paraded their bodies through the streets for propaganda purposes. Following the destruction of the tanks, the militants successfully seized full control of the Re'im military base after an hour-long battle. At 10:30 a.m., the leader of Hamas military wing, Mohammed Deif, announced that they had successfully captured the Re'im base. They claimed to have seized hundreds of advanced weapons and numerous tanks that belonged to the Israeli army. During the Battle of Re'im, a total of 23 Israeli soldiers were killed, and more than 50 were captured. While this was a significant victory for Hamas militants, their deadliest massacres were yet to come. Near the Re'im base, a festival was taking place, attended by thousands of Israelis aged between 20 and 40 from different parts of the country. Around 50 militants arrived at the festival area in minibuses upon learning of this and indiscriminately opened fire on the crowd. Despite the frantic efforts of the thousands of people to flee to the nearby wooded area, the militants pursued them. According to the preliminary estimates, the festival attack resulted in the deaths of 268 civilians, including 3 Germans, 4 Americans, and 2 Britons. The rest of the victims were Israelis. At least 100 people were taken captive. Afterward, the militants entered and took control of the settlements of Be'eri, Shokeda, Kisufim, Ein Sholasha, Far Maimon, Zimrat, Alumim, Nirim, Niros, Saad, and Nephalsim. They killed many people, took dozens of captives, and set homes on fire. As we moved to the northern region of the Gaza Strip, militants attempted to infiltrate the Israel settlement by land, but were unsuccessful. However, they conducted a landing operation on Zikim Beach using boats. Despite the intervention of Israeli police in Hasara and Yad Mordechai, the numerically superior Hamas militants rendered their efforts inactive. The militants moved through the interior and demolished concrete blocks at the border, thereby facilitating support from Gaza. They subsequently gained control over native Hasara, Erez, Yad Mordechai, Karmia, and Zikim. Approaching to the important city of Ashkelon, the militants were eventually halted by the Israeli army's intensive effort. While the battle in Sderot continued, clashes intensified between Hamas militants, who controlled the western side of the city, and Israeli forces, who held the eastern side. It's been more than 4 hours since Hamas initiated the attack, yet there has been no statement from the Israeli government. After a prolonged period of silence, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has declared a state of emergency in approximately 80 locations near Gaza. He has also issued a warning to civilians, advising them to stay in their homes and avoid leaving. He also announced that the military had been mobilized and that Hamas would soon face a proportionate response. True to the word, minutes after the announcement, the Israeli Air Force began bombing several areas in Gaza that were under the control of Hamas. However, the conflict on Israeli soil continued, with Hamas militants making progress. As a result of this rapid progression in the south, settlements such as Megan, Ein Hafsor, Nir Yitzhak, Sufa, Holid, and Urim fell under Hamas control by noon. Some of the police forces stationed in these areas were taken hostage and transported to Gaza, while others were killed by the militants. As the ongoing clashes persisted in 21 locations around Gaza, hundreds of tanks and thousands of soldiers were deployed from military bases in Beersheba, Tel Aviv, and Ashkelon to the conflict zones. Additionally, a military buildup was initiated along the Lebanese and Syrian borders as a precautionary measure. Prime Minister Netanyahu announced the mobilization of all reserve soldiers, the continuous flight of warplanes, and the activation of the Iron Dome air defense systems. Furthermore, he reported that the Israeli military had been placed in a state of war for the first time since the Yom Kippur War in 1973. Around 2 p.m., Hamas militants attempted to capture Ofakim, a densely populated city. However, their advance was halted by the arrival of the Israeli army in the region. Eventually, the militants were repelled at the Patish settlement. Although they initially seized Patish, it was retaken by the Israeli army within an hour. As news of the attack spread throughout the country, panic gripped the streets of Israel, particularly in Tel Aviv, and people began rushing to the airport. Flights bound for Turkey, Azerbaijan, and European countries were quickly filled. At around 5 p.m., the Israel Defense Forces announced the initiation of an operation called Operation Iron Sword in the Gaza Strip. The Israeli army successfully recaptured the police center in Sderot from Hamas militants by advancing on the ground. However, by 6 p.m., Hamas militants managed to take control of western parts of Ofakim and the entire city of Netivot, pushing back Israeli forces in certain areas. At nightfall, the Israeli government cut off electricity to Gaza and intensified air operations. Throughout the night, Israeli aircraft bombarded both infiltrating militants within Israel and Hamas-controlled areas in Gaza, resulting in the loss of hundreds of militants and civilians in this operation. At dawn on October 8th, gunfire was opened from Lebanon's territory towards Israel, and Hezbollah militants in Lebanon attempted to infiltrate Israeli territory. However, the Israeli army swiftly responded with force and repelled the Hezbollah militants. On the second day of the war, the Israeli army gradually managed to push back Hamas militants as they advanced into all conflict zones. Zikim, Karmia, Yad Mordechai, and Netivot were recaptured in the morning, while the Israeli army continued to make progress in other areas. By evening, apart from Ofakim, Sderot, Kfar Aza, Be'eri, Kesufim, Sufa, and Holit, all other areas have been reclaimed by the Israeli army. The Israeli army announced that numerous Hamas targets were destroyed during an extensive bombing campaign in Gaza throughout the night of October 8th. At 8 a.m. on October 9th, Prime Minister Netanyahu declared that a comprehensive ground operation will be launched in Gaza. Netanyahu stated that ongoing clashes between Hamas militants and Israeli soldiers were occurring in 7 or 8 locations around the Gaza Strip. However, he assured that control will be regained over all areas by the evening. Afterward, a ground operation in Gaza would commence. In support of this operation, the United States dispatched an aircraft carrier and 120 fighter jets to the waters near Israel and provided an additional $4.5 billion financial aid. As of the time this video was made, the Israeli army had begun entering Gaza after regaining control of all previously occupied areas. According to the official figures, approximately 750 Israelis lost their lives in the Aqsa Tempest attack, and it's estimated that around 250 Israelis were abducted. Following the Israeli counter-operation, 200,000 people left Gaza, while 400 people lost their lives. As we conclude this video, we will continue to keep you informed about any further developments in the upcoming days. Additionally, we hope for a swift end to this war, which tragically claims innocent lives on both sides. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.